Hello and welcome to Sessions with Judith John. Leave a message here on this WhatsApp number for me on 82979 or you can just drop an email at sessionswithjudithjohn@gmail.com to remain in touch. So in today's session, we're going to see the second lesson in Flamingo textbook of class 12 English core, Lost Spring. All the best. Enjoy learning. So before we begin with the lesson, first get a very clear idea of the name of the lesson, Lost Spring. It has a subtitle along with it, Stories of Stolen Childhood. Please understand this very clearly. It could be a 1-mark question. What is the name of the lesson or the title to the lesson? Lost Spring hyphen Stories of Stolen Childhood by Anees Jung. What could lost spring mean? What is springtime like? Springtime is a joyful period of time. The season is in its full bloom. Greenery, flowers, bright sunshine, children out to play. Always it's supposed to be spring related to happy times, where nature is in its fullness enjoyed. But when we say lost spring, spring is lost. How can that best time or the time which is to be enjoyed be lost? When we come to our life, which is that springtime in our life? And I'm sure everyone's answer should be the same. It's childhood, the carefree life we live. No responsibilities, no burdens, play, laugh. And if we say when this is compared to life lost spring, it is only one thing. It means the second part of the title, stolen childhood, where you are not allowed to be a child, where you are not allowed to be joyful and carefree. So stories of stolen childhood. What could this mean to us? The author, Anees Jung, interacts with these poor children, and so the theme of the lesson goes like this. First of all, she discusses the grinding poverty and traditions which condemn poor children to live a life of exploitation. If you look at our own country, we don't have to go far. We see so many poor people living in slums, living along railway lines. We see them living by the roadsides or particular areas fixed as slums for them on the outskirts of the cities. All right. So the poor children here, how do they live their lives? We are all gifted enough that we can sit in a classroom and learn. Have you ever thought of these children who don't have access to education? What is their life like? They either go about begging, and others come under again this great, banner child labor, which is very prevalent in our country, and you can really see it in restaurants, in building sites, in textile industry, in matchmaking, where they make matches. So in firecracker industry, in so many places, in mines, it's children working. So we go on to the next part, the way society and the political class have no sympathy for the sufferings of the poor. If we look at the normal life, the way we live here in our country, all over you will see everyone sticks to their own class of living. So even schools, even educational institutions, where only the rich can go, where only the middle class can go, and then where the poor can go, or even poorer cannot go at all. And even the standard and class of education given somewhere is different in different places. So how do we look at them? And how are they treated? They're given a lot of empty promises. Each time, bureaucrats or politicians or even people who are much well off than them come and give them a lot of promises. But are their promises fulfilled? It's always a question to be asked and unanswered at most times. The plight of street children forced into labor early in life and denied the opportunity of schooling. So even as children, they are made to do maybe even domestic work, household chores. So children have been struggling all the time. Poor children. In this chapter today, we will stop and think about these poor children who we hardly think of. We always, most of the time, think only of ourselves. The author brings out this great value, which we all have to nurture. Empathizing with poor children's life, being thankful for what we have, and learning to contribute in the improvement of society. If we as learned people can contribute to these poor children in some way, maybe in educating them, at least empathizing with them, do we even turn and look at them because they are dirty and poor, or we just ignore them or neglect them altogether? Now, from here, I would like to show you some clips to see and feel so that we will be able to empathize better, as we go through the lesson. Now, here in this slide, you can see pictures of children working as rag pickers. If you're a little alert and you're really a little observant, you can see through the window of your house or through from the balcony where you're seated. Early in the morning, small children with these plastic bags, big bags or sacks, walking around digging at garbage dumps to find something useful. And by noon, they go to the scrap dealer, give all what they could find, plastic bags, plastic packets, uh, maybe iron and steel pieces, anything that can be recycled to the scrap dealer, and in return get some money, which for them that day will be their food. So it may be just 10 rupees, it may be 20 rupees, how much ever they get on that single day is their food for the day. So just imagine they may not even get one proper meal in one day. This is their plight. The author makes us go through and look at into their lives, delve into their lives through her story about these children. And the next is the bangle makers. The bangle makers live a very pathetic life. Not many know about all, we use bangles on all good occasions and very proudly show it off. For Indian married women, it is of great importance and significance. And in all great occasions, any festival, bangles for like girls and women, it's important. It's part of the traditional dressing, Indian dressing. And we all flaunt bangles. Have we thought of from where it comes? Who makes them? How? And how are they paid or how are their lives? And this is for us to ponder. Our author, Anis Jung, takes us through to their lives to really observe their life. And let us see how much this can affect us as we go through the lesson. Now, we are not going to read the lesson. We're just going to quickly have a short discussion of the story and then all the important points that you have to remember for your exam. So keep your textbooks open and ready. Now, the lesson Lost Spring, Stories of Stolen Childhood comes in two parts. Part 1 and Part 2. The author beautifully explains in Part 1 all about the plight of rag pickers through the eyes of a little boy named Sahib Alam, a rag picker himself. And part 2, the author brings out all about the bangle makers through this little boy named Mukesh. So the lesson itself is in two parts. and in two different places altogether. Now, here I have just summed up a little bit about what are the important things under each part. First part, Sahib-e-Alam is a rag picker, a small little boy. The author interacts with him. He lives in Simapuri on the periphery of Delhi. When you say periphery, and the outskirts of the city. There she mentions a story about how all these children walk around barefoot. No shoes, no slippers. And if they're able to get one, it is from the garbage dump, some torn one, okay, or odd ones, what somebody else has thrown away. So she tells us a beautiful story of a man from Udupi. This is a 5 marks question, long answer. And then she goes on to describe their poor living condition, in nothing that can be called homes, and then how they go about rag picking for survival. All right, but in some way they do contribute a lot to environment, and how sports is totally out of reach for poor children. Here she points out tennis, where the child can only stand at the gate outside and watch rich boys playing. Finally, this child is forced to work in a tea stall against all his wishes because he needs money and his family has to live. The second part, it's about Mukesh, a small little boy again with whom the author interacts and belongs to the family of bangle makers. Now, if you look at the city of Firozabad, which is about 4 hours from Agra, the place is known for its glass making industry or famous for its bangles. Again, she goes on there to show the poor living condition of the people there and how working with this making of bangles is dangerous for them because they lose their eyesight. The dust enters their lungs and they have very short life, or if at all they have to live blind for the rest of their life. She gives a beautiful example here of a little girl named Savita, who will also, not knowing now that she is a child, how her life is going to be as sorrowful as the old lady who is sitting next to her, blind. So no leader is there to form a cooperative or help these people. And if they do, they are caught by the police and punished. He dreams of driving a car. He wants to be different. He doesn't want to make bangles. But how can he do that? He joins or plans to join as a motor mechanic in a nearby garage. And he thinks that if he can learn to repair cars and work with that, he will get a chance to drive a car. This is the pathetic condition of the poor people, where two examples through these two parts explained in the lesson that the author really talks about. Now let's go to the text. Keep your texts ready.
So here is the lesson. I hope all of you have kept your textbook open with this page so that you can go on marking as in how we go with the lesson. A quick revision with all the important points for your exam and what you really need to know about this lesson. So Lost Spring, Stories of Stolen Childhood, and the author's name, Anis Jung. All this is important. We have already seen this. Okay. Now going on to see the lesson straight away. Part 1, we are going to see about this, Sahib, the child. The very first line says, sometimes I find a rupee in the garbage. Okay. It's a very important line. Who says this? Sahib says this. Why does he say this? Because he is finding something or the other very important which he can turn into money in the garbage that he is digging into and finding. Then you can see here the word scrounging. What is scrounging? Scrounging is to take something away without asking any permission. Now they don't have to ask, these people, the rag pickers don't have to ask anybody's permission to take away things from a heap of garbage. That's what somebody is throwing away as unwanted. Okay, but why scrounging for gold? No, these are all 1 mark questions that you have to be ready with. So why scrounging for gold? That sometimes they do find something very useful or of value, or which may turn into money, which can be recycled, which can be given to the scrap dealer, and they can get money in return. Okay, and then this child here, Sahib, okay, goes on to talk to the author. Author asks him whether he would like to go to school. Now here, go to school, the author is saying. Why say glibly? Glibly means what? Speaking in a clever, smooth way, but not sincere or honest. This word here shows that how these people, the poor people like the rag pickers, are being given a lot of empty promises. Actually, this can also be a 2 marks question, which for now you all don't have because it's all 1 mark question on how the authors talk about going to school is even that is false. Because when the author says, yes, are you going to build a school? And she says, yes, if you build a school, I'll come. That's what Sahib says. So the author herself makes a comment and says that this exists in large number or quantity all around. What? These kind of promises. These kind of promises. Okay. And in his bleak world, in his very depressing world, it is a world for him very depressing. Next question is about Sahib's name. Sahib-e-Alam is his full name. You can see highlighted over here. And so I put an arrow to show the meaning is here. The meaning of his name, Lord of the Universe. This is also 1 mark question. Sahib-e-Alam means Lord of the Universe is his name. And what is the boy doing with such a name? He is only rag picking. Exactly opposite of what really he should be. He is the Lord of the Universe. Okay. So it shows how ironic it is. And then the author goes on to discuss a little bit about how these children, the rag pickers, walk around without any shoes or without any footwear at all. Okay. And when the author asks, he shuffles. Shuffles means what? Just changing his feet here and there. When one is nervous, when one is feeling bad. Okay. And she knows that they have a tradition of staying barefoot. Not only that, but the reality is that they are in a state of perpetual poverty. See, as we go, I have been highlighting here all the important lines. Okay. What the child says may not be true. The truth is what the author says, that they are poor, they don't, shoes are expensive, footwear is expensive, they can't have the money even for their daily food. How will they buy this? And then the story of a man from Udupi. Now, what is this story? This could be a 5 marks question, long answer. It can be a 2 marks question as well, of how a child who did not have footwear, okay, prayed so much. After many years, when the author could see that his son was wearing shoes. So somewhere God has heard his prayer. But for the rag pickers, this is not happening. Okay. Then we go on to the next part where the author is, Anees Jung, is talking about the rag pickers' lives and how they are living there in Simapuri, this place, which is already highlighted. You can see on the periphery of Delhi. I told you periphery is outskirts of the city, on the, outside part of the city, on the borders. Okay. They are squatters. What does she mean by squatters here? People who occupy building or land without permission. So they just come by the roadside or wherever they find empty land. They just, put up small shanties, sheds where they can live. They don't build proper houses. From where will they get money? They don't have. And most of them are from Bangladesh, way back in 1971 when they came, and Sahib's family also was one of them. What are their houses like? Structures of mud with roofs of tin and tarpaulin. What is tarpaulin? You get these huge plastic sheets, flexible water resistant material. They just tie them up like small tents. With that, their houses are made devoid of sewage. No drainage, no running water, nothing. And they just live there in these shanties. How many of them? Around 10,000 rag pickers. And these are the people actually who really help a lot with the environment and clean up everything because they contribute to recycling. If you want to read up a little more on this, please do Google out on how the rag pickers were represented even in the UN and their contribution for environment. So please do read up and come to know a little more about that for your section B question. It will be useful. Okay, so they don't have any kind of an identity. They're just living there. Okay, they just get the basic thing, food, and then to live in these shanties. Okay, for them, survival means rag picking only, and garbage to them is gold. Why? Because that is their livelihood. Only if there is garbage from there, they dig and find up things which they, plastic bottles, kind of plastic bags or whatever can be recycled. Pick up those things and sell it out to the scrap dealers to get money. Okay. Now, scrounging is something we have already seen, to take away without permission. For the children, now here there's a difference. Again, another 1 mark question it can be on. For children, what is this garbage about? What is this rag picking about? It is wrapped in wonder. They just loiter around with their parents and pick up whatever is interesting for them, even from broken toys, okay, broken sports items. For the elders, it means survival. For them, seriously, they search so that they'll find something useful which can fetch them money. Okay, so the next part, the author goes on to say how, where in a tennis ground where they're playing tennis, this child stands outside and keeps the tennis club. So stands outside and watches. When no one is playing, the gatekeeper is kind enough and allows him to just go and play in the swing. Otherwise, he stands out there and watches. He's wearing clothes. Which one? Someone has thrown away. Some rich boy who could play tennis has thrown away his damaged shoes and his old shirt and shorts, and that's what this little boy Sahib is wearing. He cannot afford to buy new clothes or new shoes or wear them, but it doesn't bother him at all. He's just wearing them. So look at that. He is living his own dream, that he is at least able to wear them. And then you'll see here that one morning the author saw Sahib carrying a canister. What is a canister? A metal container for holding tea or coffee or milk. You will see in the morning the milkman who comes with a particular, this kind of a shaped can on his bike or bicycle supplying milk. And that's called the canister, on which, this child is carrying that. And then he says, the little child tells the author, I am paid 800 rupees and given all my meals. And then the author just comes to a conclusion, says surely the child is not at all happy. With that, bag which he was carrying on his shoulders, he was happy. It was his own bag. And in his own time, he was going around picking. But that was not giving him enough money. He has to sacrifice his freedom, his happy childhood life, which even otherwise, even if it be in misery, and he has to go and join a tea shop and be a slave there literally. He's not his own master. See the last line. Sahib is no longer his own master. He's forced to work under someone. That is child labor. The author is pointing at that. Now let's quickly go with part 2. In part 2, it's about Mukesh. Mukesh belongs to the bangle maker's family. What is his dream? He wants to drive a car. Does he get to do it? Let's see. Now Mukesh dreams of this, apart from what his family has been doing all the time, making bangles. Okay. His dream looks like a mirage. What is a mirage? Now when you walk in the desert, people get fooled that there is an oasis coming up, and actually where there is nothing because of optical illusion. It's actually optical illusion. To make it simpler for you here, I just tried to explain that it's an unrealistic hope or wish that cannot be achieved. Something that you believe you see, but that's really not there. Okay. So here this is what his dream is like. He can't even realize his dream. Okay. And these dreams are filled with no hope. And Firozabad, the place which the author is here discussing, the people there are the bangle makers, and this is what is their condition. So, it's illegal for children like him to work in the glass furnace with high temperatures in dingy cells without air and light, but they are forced to do so. And Mukesh's family is also there. 20,000 children work in hot furnaces. Please look at this line very carefully where I'm trying to show here this pointer. Often losing the brightness of their eyes. So finally they will become blind. Working in dark cells, in dingy places. No, even their working condition is not good. Okay. That remain now, how do they work? In hovels, a small dirty little house almost unfit to live in, and that with crumbling walls. Look at the description the author gives, with crumbling walls, with wobbly doors, no windows. Okay. And this is the kind of life that these people are living. And she says in a primeval state. Now this is very interesting. Primeval comes from the word primitive, very primitive living. Like ancient man they are living. Why? Because all animals and human beings and everything together, dirt, filth, no proper homes, just like little holes. Okay. And one such house is Mukesh's house. The author goes to his house, and when she goes there, she finds a wobbly iron door, and a half-built shack. It's not even a fully built house; it's a half-built one. In one part of it, there you can see cooking is happening. The rest of the house, of course, a little bit of whatever bangles are lying in and about and all over the house. And in that little place, one small little place which is not even a proper house, who all live there? Mukesh's father, his elder brother, his wife, and Mukesh. So 4 people live there, and this little girl was Mukesh's brother's wife, has to cook for the entire family. So it's a very impoverished, made very poor, what's the name? Impoverished bangle maker, very poor bangle maker. They are all poor. Okay, he has tried so hard and he has still not been able to make even a proper house for his family. That is his condition. Okay. Now, here Mukesh's grandmother is sitting. Now, she says it is his karam. Now, what is his karam? The result of one's act or deed or his destiny. That's what it is. In those days in India, if you look at ancient India, a bangle maker's son must be a bangle maker. Carpenter's son must be a carpenter only. So somewhere even caste came into existence with that each one born into that caste should be doing only that work and nothing more. So here, that's what these people also believed in. The old lady is saying that. Okay. Then what happens? They go blind with the dust from the polishing of the glass bangles. This is what happens to them. They all become blind at one point of time. And can a God-given lineage, now this is another belief, that the family from which they descended, this is how I told you the caste system that exists, that each one, whatever work they've been doing, their children should also be doing the same work, and the family has to continue with the ancestral work. Alright, so all these beautiful bangles are lying all over, everywhere about the place. In mounds in unkempt yards. What is mounds? Mass of bangles piled like a little hill. Okay. You can see mounds means mass of bangles piled. Unkempt is not kept very neatly or tidily. All over the place you find only that. Okay. It's important because these are all for 1 mark questions. They can pop up and they end up losing their eyesight before they become adults. Now she gives another example. There is one little girl, Savita, sitting in a drab pink. What is drab? Is a dull pink dress. She doesn't know what is the sanctity of bangles. Sanctity of bangles, why? Because when in any Indian festival, it's very important, especially marriage. And bangles play a very important. So the sanctity of it, how important it is. Then, because it has the Indian woman suhag. What is the Indian woman suhag? Married woman, when her husband is alive, that is the suhag. Okay, according to the Indian tradition. Now that's what the author explains. She says she still has bangles on her wrist but no light in her eyes. Who? The old lady sitting next to Savita. Savita is so young and doesn't know that she will also end up like the old lady one day. There is a Hindi line over here. एक वक्त सैर भर खाना भी नहीं किया खाया. What does it mean? Not enjoyed even one full meal in her entire lifetime. That's what she's saying. Especially now, this is for those who really don't know Hindi. But the word "ser," many of you get stuck with. Even if you know Hindi, it means one measure of or 1 kilo of that. It's one particular measure of food. Okay. She couldn't even. She says she has never had even one day's proper meal in her life ever. Okay. So there is no, she's very sad. She complains. Okay. You can see the meaning of the line very much given over here, which I have already highlighted. All right. So after this, the author goes on to say how these, people live a very miserable life. Okay. The young men echo the lament of their elders. It's continued. Their elders also do the same work, the children also do the same work. Expression of complaint, grief, disappointment, lament. Okay, so they're all complaining about it, they are sad about it. Okay, after years of mind-numbing toil. What is mind-numbing toil? So much of hard work, blood and sweat, have killed all the initiative and ability to dream. They are made to work more like slaves. They are not given any kind of freedom. They are not given proper pay for their work. So they live more like slaves. Why like slaves? We will see that in the next part as we continue, where the author explains why like slaves. So why not organize yourselves into a cooperative? The author asks one of the young men, and the man says no. It's like a vicious circle of middlemen. Okay, who makes money in today's market? You look at our farmers are all the time complaining and struggling. Why are farmers? No? If you say a picture of a farmer, they are usually pictured poor. Why so? Because all the time you see it is the middlemen, the bureaucrats, the officials who market it to the cities and other places who make money. They pay the farmers very less. So that's what the author is pointing out over here. And she says, therefore, see, they are the middlemen, the circle of middlemen. Okay, law is not supporting the farmers. If the farmer is spending 100 rupees for a particular crop to be created in a particular bit of land, he should be getting back at least 200 rupees. Instead, he has to sell it maybe just for the same 100 rupees or 110 rupees, not much. So he will always remain poor. And on the other hand, the middlemen who bring it to the city and sell it for 5 times or 10 times more than the price that they're buying it for from the farmers. Otherwise, he says, even if we try to create a cooperative, then what happens? The police, they forcefully come, and arrest them or pull them up for, in some case, saying it's illegal. So there is no leader among them. Who will be the leader? Because they will be arrested, they will be tortured by the police if they do so. So from poverty to apathy to greed and injustice here, very nicely the author puts it. Okay. They talk endlessly in a spiral like the bangles that they make. Okay. That moves from poverty to apathy to greed and to injustice. So this is their life. Very sad. Poor as they are. Poverty. What is apathy? No. Lack of interest, enthusiasm or concern. No one has that. To greed and to injustice. What are they losing all this? Why are they remaining poor? Why are they remaining with no enthusiasm at all there? Because of the greed of politicians, of bureaucrats, and to injustice. There is no proper law that helps them. And of course, the stigma of caste. What is a stigma? It's a stamp there, a bad reputation, because it is reproved. But the caste that they belong to, like as though for entire lifetime they have to make only bangles, not given any proper education, no proper life. No? Okay. What is a vicious circle? Now, why vicious circle? Why is the author saying this whole thing is a vicious circle? A continuing unpleasant situation repeatedly happening. Over the years, there is no redemption for these people. There is no rescue. They are continuing to remain a very poor life in the same condition. No proper house, no proper food. Okay. And then she goes on to give the explanation. They are a vicious circle of sahukars. Who are the sahukars? Old-time rich sellers. Okay. In India, we always had these saukars or the rich sellers. The middlemen, the policemen, the keepers of law, the bureaucrats, officials working in the government department, and the politicians. This is very important. Keep in mind that all of them together have made the poor people's life worse over here. In this case, the bangle makers and the children suffer because of that. Okay. Now, in a small murmur, there is an embarrassment. What is the embarrassment? What is an embarrassment? A feeling of a self-consciousness, shame, and awkwardness. About what? That has not yet turned into a disappointment. So somewhere these people are all really struggling. Okay. The author ends with this, that this child only can dream of becoming a car mechanic because he saw a garage at the some 1 kilometer away from his house where he can walk and go and find work and maybe able to touch the car at least. Once in a while, at least a car of a politician or a very rich merchant comes down their street, they can see. But when the author asks him, will you be able to fly a plane? Why not a plane? He just is blank. He falls silent. Why? Because a child has never seen a plane in his life. If at all, once in a while, up above in the sky, far away, he can see something going by. He doesn't even know how it looks properly. At least he has seen a car. This is the pathetic state of the poor people and their children that the author brings out through this lesson. That's why it's Lost Spring. Stories of stolen childhood. All the important points are marked out, and these most of the questions will be asked based on these. We can still have a quick look at some of the questions which are given in between the chapter, which is also very important after doing the lesson here. So what is Sahib looking for in the garbage dumps? He is looking for something useful which will fetch him money, where he can give it to the scrap dealer and get some money. Okay. Where is he and where has he come from? He is from Dhaka in Bangladesh. Okay. And he is now living in Simapuri on the outskirts of Delhi. What explanations does the author offer for the children not wearing footwear? It's poverty. They are really poor. They cannot afford footwear. They can't even get a meal a day properly. How will they think of footwear? Is Sahib happy working at the tea stall? No, not really. Because the author states that he is no longer his own master. He is not happy. He is not free like before. The next set of questions over here, you can see what makes the city of Firozabad famous? Bangle makers. A whole lot of bangle makers. Mention the hazards of working in the glass bangles industry. They lose their eyesight. The dust gets into their eyes. They become blind very soon. They work in dingy cells which are no light and exposed to the heat and dust, which may affect their lungs as well. Mention the hazards of working in the glass bangle. This is what we have seen just now. How is Mukesh's attitude to a situation different from that of his family? He wants to drive a car. He wants to be a motor mechanic. Okay. Now, what could be some of the reasons for the migration of people from cities to villages to cities, thinking that they will get better life and they will be out of poverty, which is not really going to happen when they shift in. At least maybe there they didn't have anything, and here at least they're getting the food. Okay. Would you agree that promises made to poor children are rarely kept? Why do you think this happens in incident narrated in the text? Here you have to give the example of where the author is interacting with Sahib and talks about schools. Okay. What forces conspire to keep the workers in the bangle industry of Firozabad in poverty? What conspire? Conspire means an act together secretly or illegally. Somebody coming together to do something against you. Here the answer lies here where I have highlighted. The sahukars, middlemen, policemen, the keepers of law, the bureaucrats and the politicians. They are the people who are playing havoc in their lives. How, in your opinion, can Mukesh realize his dream? Yes, he can walk up to the garage which is there, learn to repair cars and therefore get a chance to. Okay. Now, about child labor and how it can be eliminated and all that is a section B question, very important. So, get all the points you can. Google up, you'll find a lot of points, and you can add all the points given in this lesson as well. For that, you should be reading in the papers also a lot about child labor. It's a very sad thing in our country where children, instead of going to school and studying, have to work and make their life miserable. It's a sad thing, yes, but okay. All along the carelessness of society and the political class to the sufferings of the poor, I made it simple over there. Carelessness is having no sympathy for others' feelings. Okay, so this is the lesson that we have tried to go through. Children, it's not about just reading through the lesson and preparing for an exam. Please do some little good where you can for these poor children around. You can help in your own little way. You can maybe even teach your maid's child or your watchman's children who are not able to reach up to where we have reached. Okay, so the dreams of the poor and the reality problems of child labor, if we all educated people who have enough can contribute and help at least one other person study, it would be wonderful. Thank you.
So hope you enjoyed learning this lesson. Keep watching Sessions with Judith John for more tips and inputs to excel and stand out. Remember to text your doubts and queries in the comment box or mail me at sessionswithjudithjohn@gmail.com for any kind of help you need or any discussion, any doubts. Or you can also text me in this WhatsApp number 82979 70282. Enjoy learning. God bless you. Thank you.